What's the best quality radio from Radiomaster, like the plastic of the radio, and what is it compared to Futaba? I can't compare Radiomaster to Futaba. I've never owned a Futaba. Futaba, by all accounts, makes very high quality radios. However, Futaba is focused on the traditional RC world, and there definitely has been some massive price inflation of radios in the traditional fixed wing RC world. We see radios, like I remember getting into the hobby way back when and seeing like an 8-channel radio for, $500, etc. And, 16-channel radio for $1,200. And then I found a $60 Chinese radio which ran OpenTX and had 32 channels, and you got 16 channels, etc., etc. And the point is that this $60 radio was not to the same build quality in terms of its soldering and QC, but in terms of capabilities, it had way more functionality than even a $1,200 Futaba radio, okay? Because it was open source software. And so when you look at a $800, $1,000, $1,200 Futaba radio, some of that price is the quality control, the soldering, etc. But how much of it? It ultimately, like what's in a Futaba radio is just basic electronics, its switches, its gimbals. The hardware that goes into it, the design that goes into a Futaba radio is not worth $1,200. And so some of what they're charging for is that years ago they figured out that you could charge $200 more to go from 8 channels to 12 channels or something like that. They've stratified their price range, and their customers are willing to go with it because their customers don't want to buy cheap Chinese POS radios that they don't trust. They're banking on their reputation. That's my take on it. And I don't think that the build quality of if you look inside a Radiomaster radio, they're very well built. Like maybe they were a little bit less well built back in the old days. Like I recently swapped out the antennas on my GX12, and I was so impressed. Inside the GX12, all the ways that the wires are routed, like the wires go through a little retaining clip on the circuit board, or the wires are like zip tied down so they're not loose. Like so much care is taken inside this radio. There are labels for all the plugs and stuff so that if you like, and there you can see that there are QC test points, right? There's a place where it says screw goes here. Like this is the Radiomaster radios are not just like slapped together cheap Chinese POS. So much thought and care has gone into the design. And if you open one up, you can see that. The solder joints are impeccable. Now, I can't say that Radiomaster QC and industrial design is on the level of Futaba. I don't have experience with Futaba radios. I don't know what their failure rate is. But I can say that Radiomaster is very good. And the fact that it's inexpensive speaks more to the fact that it's not, well, first of all, it's a Chinese product. It's an open source product, the software. And it's in the FPV world where customers are very, very price conscious. So there's this downward pressure on the price. And also, it hasn't had years and years and years to stratify and build up price and get customers used to paying $1,200. Oh, I have a Futaba. It's $1,200. So, yeah. So as far as quality goes, any of the newer radios, the GX12, the T15, the Boxer, like, not that the older radios are bad, just that those radios, they're going to have the latest in terms of the gimbals and the design, and they're just very, very good. And you just pick whichever one you like. None of them are bad. I would put the AGO1 gimbals up against anything Futaba makes. Saying that, by the way, as someone who's never flown a Futaba, so I could be talking out, probably am talking out my ass, but those are very good gimbals.
Can you answer the next question? Oh, perfect.
This one? I bought a Spektrum controller and returned a Boxer Radiomaster. It was recommended from a friend. Was that the right choice for FPV? No, that was the wrong choice. You've made a mistake. I'm sorry to put it so bluntly, but there's no question that you've made a mistake. The Spektrum radio is a good radio, but the Spektrum ecosystem, no one in the FPV world is in the Spektrum ecosystem. No one. Obviously, I say FPV. When I say FPV, some people who fly airplanes. Spektrum is much more popular in the airplane world. One reason is that airplanes are typically flown line of sight. So Spektrum has fine range and penetration for line of sight flying, because how far can you go before the airplane just is out of sight? You can't see it anymore. Spektrum doesn't have the range and penetration of something like Express LRS or Crossfire. Spektrum doesn't have the range and penetration that is competitive when you're flying FPV and you're potentially flying behind obstacles or inside a building through walls. So it's going to give you worse range and penetration, and everyone in FPV is using EdgeTX, and that radio ecosystem is just sort of where the community is together. So when you look for help, it's going to be a lot harder to find help on something to do with Spektrum than like EdgeTX, a Radiomaster radio, a jumper radio. I say everyone flies FPV, and the implication there is people flying drones. There absolutely are people who fly airplanes with FPV on them, and some of those people fly Spektrum because Spektrum is much more popular in the fixed wing line of sight world. And so then when those people get into FPV, they put an FPV camera and video transmitter on their plane, and they keep their Spektrum receiver. So like those people are absolutely, I don't mean to suggest that those people aren't like in the FPV community, but just the vast majority of people flying FPV are not flying Spektrum, because most people flying FPV are flying drones, and most people flying FPV drones are using EdgeTX radios. So with that Spektrum controller, you will have less functionality from the controller. EdgeTX is more functional. It can do more things in terms of programming. You will have a harder time finding tutorials about how to set up and program the radio. You will have worse range and penetration. You will have far more expensive receivers that have worse range and penetration. Yeah. The other reason that you see a lot of Spektrum in the fixed wing world is Spektrum makes bind and fly airplanes that just bind to the Spektrum controller and it's good to go. And the FPV world doesn't really believe in that.